When so welcome everyone to today's event. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good part of day. This is my usual way of greeting everyone. Thank you for joining the largest, fastest growing, and the most active um, meetup in the virtual community for organizational design, product centricity, and business agility under the umbrella of large scale Scrum. Today, we will be we'll be greeting and hosting a very special speaker. His name is Gabriel Steinhardt. And I would like to give a few words of introduction about Gabriel before I pass the control over to him. Gabriel is the Black Bots founder and a recognized international technology product management expert. He's the author of the three books. You saw all three cover pages in the post on the meetup. These three books are on product management, product pricing, and data-driven decision making, and they are all published by Springler Verlag as a publisher. I actually did some research, and this is a pretty well respected. It's a reputable publisher. Gabriel is also a developer, and he has developed the Blackbot Product Manager Toolkit. The acronym for it would be PMTK. Okay, so if you want to just quickly jump on Google and Google it, you will find a lot of information on it. This toolkit is used for product management methodology and has been globally adopted as one of best practices. So with any other further ado, I would like to welcome Gabriel, thank him for joining, and pass the baton over to him. For everyone else, folks, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to kindly keep your mics off and your cameras on to the extent that you can. Show yourself. Even if you're lunching, that's fine. We're lunching and learning. It's okay if you're eating or drinking. We want to see your face. Faces give energy to speakers. Your face is important, okay? So, Gabriel, over to you. Please take it away. And yeah, any questions, just hold off until he gives you heads up so you can start asking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining in today, and it's a pleasure for me to be here with you. My name is Gabriel Steinhardt, and this presentation is titled Understanding Product Management Through Its Many Interpretations. So there's a lot of interest in product management over the last decade, and there's a lot of discussions on product management. And all this interest in product management has generated a lot of information in the form of articles and blog posts and group discussions on LinkedIn and people writing articles on Medium, asking questions on Reddit and Quora and all these other places. And all of this activity has created a mass of digital information on product management. But it's also created a lot of confusion. People are confused what product management is. They don't know how to define, explain, describe, organizationally place product management. And this confusion has led people, or this dynamic has led people to go on the internet and try to search for the very basics of what is product management. And according to some of the research that we did, we found that around 700,000 to 1 million searches are being done every month on Google search by people trying to figure out the basics. What is a product manager and what is product management? So the questions posed to us at this juncture are, why is there so much confusion about product management? Why is there one cohesive, uniform, universal definition for it? And why is it that if we go job searching and we take a look at a job board or something like that, every job description for a product management position looks different than the other? So there's no consistency over there. Now, why is it? And why is it that people say that every company applies product management differently? You probably heard that phrase many times. The answer to all these questions is that there presently isn't one, but actually four different approaches to product management being applied today. And not only that, there's all kinds of combinations and permutations where they combine one, two or more of these approaches, and then you have some kind of a variant to it. So what we're going to do in this presentation is we're going to take a look and review these four different approaches. Now, one of the approaches, the most basic one, is called the CEO of the product. You probably heard of it, but in order to understand this approach, we need to revisit the early technology startups in the United States, on the West Coast, in California, particularly in the Silicon Valley. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some time travel back to the 1980s. So in the 1980s and the 1990s, startup culture was essentially centered around one individual. It was kind of a one-man show. It was one person who did everything around the product. They were the engineer, the inventor, the salesperson, the marketer. They were the CEO of the company. They did everything around one product. And people like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates are the embodiment of this approach. They were the inventors, the salespeople, the engineers, the marketers. They did everything in one company around one product. So they were essentially a CEO of a company, and that company had one product. So they were the CEO of that product or CEO of the product. This gentleman over here is Ben Horowitz, and he was born in England, raised in California, studied computer science at UCLA and later on at Columbia. He was employed as an engineer in Silicon Graphics, if you ever heard of those companies. Then he was a product marketing manager at a company called Lotus. And in 1995, he was hired as a project, not product, project manager at a company called Netscape. I know you guys know a lot, but I'm just going through the motions. Netscape created the first internet browser. It was called Navigator. So within 2 years, in 1997, Mr. Horowitz over here was promoted to become a VP, a vice president at Netscape. And in 1997, he wrote a memo which was well publicized and well disseminated and propagated throughout the world, actually. And it was called Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager. And in that memo, there was a phrase or a statement, a good product manager is the CEO of the product. And that claim or that assertion reflects the idea of what a product manager is, at least during the 1980s and 90s. And by the way, a lot of people use this phrase and use this memo to frame and define the role of a product manager. So what does a CEO do? Well, they define strategy, they lead the team, they engage in the financials, they represent stakeholders, the investors, they manage resources. They do all of this with regard to one company. They do all of this at the company level. So the idea of a CEO of the product, that a product manager will do everything that a CEO does, but not at the company level, at the product level. Now, the whole idea in companies is that the executives are generalists, are generalists, and they manage specialists. So the idea over here is that if the CEO is a generalist, not a specialist, then the product manager is also going to be a generalist. Sorry. So this is what we're going to call the generalization approach. And the generalization approach sees the product manager as being responsible for anything and everything around the product. And this leads to these monikers, these names of CEO of the product, product CEO, mini CEO. So the generalization approach views product management as being multidisciplinary, just like a CEO. You're a generalist and multifaceted, and you're responsible for anything and everything related to the product. So the main consideration that we need to emphasize over here is the view that a product manager is a generalist. Product management is a generalization, not a specialization. And this idea shapes the role of a product manager as a collection of various responsibilities like managerial, technical, operational, anything that you just want, you can fit in here. Now, sometimes you will read or you will hear people talking about the product manager in terms of being the backbone or the connective tissue or the glue that holds everything together in a product project. So these are very common ways of how people describe the product manager under this approach. So, if we were to assign a descriptive title for the product manager under the generalization approach, then it would be a delivery manager. You're essentially a project manager managing the product delivery. You're bringing a product to the market. You are working to have all the people in the company work in a synchronized way in unison to bring the product to the market. And product managers under this approach experience endless status meetings with members from all the different corporate functions in the company. So, according to the research that we've done, around 25% of software development companies use the CEO of the product approach, and 50% of non-software product companies, that is technology companies, but their primary product is not software, it could be hardware or anything else, use, again, the generalization approach. Now, the problem with the generalization approach is that it has no boundaries. The scope is endless. There's no mechanism to determine what to include or exclude in this position. So it's kind of shifting, and there's nothing prohibiting anybody from assigning to you, the product manager under this approach, new responsibilities on a daily basis. The situation of a product manager under the generalization approach is that they have meetings with people from all over the company, I'm sorry, and there's constant deliberations and discussions on the scope of ownership, responsibilities, desired skills. Sometimes these lists of desired skills, they go up to 60, 70, 80 lines of desired skills. It's just outlandish. And one of the main discussions is how to lead without authority. That is, you have to tell people what to do, but you cannot hire them or fire them. So that's a major discussion that they have. Now, given this description of a bottomless pit, endless responsibilities, the endless scope, then is it too much? Is this kind of an approach doomed to fail? I mean, how many balls can you juggle in your hands? Two, three, four, 10? So is it doomed to fail? Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to jump to the dot-com days. And this is going to serve as a prelude, a kind of an introduction to the next approach. So the dot-com days were in the late 90s, early 2000, and we're jumping specifically to the year 2001, which was a very important and pivotal turning point in the history of product management, and by the way, also product development. So it was the good old days, the internet gold rush, and there was a ton of money. There was unimaginable spending, and companies were being formed on a daily basis. Salaries were very high, and anybody who had any kind of an inclination towards something in the realm of technology could get a job. And there was an abundance of job openings. But the good old days came to an end, and around 2001, the bubble burst, and everybody was reeling from the loss of money, and everybody lost their jobs, and everybody was now looking for a better way to develop software. Now, without going into a long discussion, I'm going to refer in a second to the Agile Manifesto and the Scrum book, and I assume that you know what they are. And if not, then it's fine. Then just go ahead and Google it or whatever. So again, everybody was reeling from the effects of the dot-com implosion, and there was a 3-year high-tech recession after the dot-com burst. There was a void in the market, and there was an ongoing search for a better, faster delivery method that could quickly bring products into the market and do it faster with lower cost. And this method or this approach needed to be different than the software development methods that were used during the dot-com era. So the Agile Manifesto and the Scrum book by Schwaber and Beadle was perfectly timed to offer an alternative and supposedly a better way for developing software. And this was in 2001. Now, Scrum is an anomaly in a certain way that there's a certain role over there, which is called the Scrum Product Owner. It was a newly introduced role, and people were trying to grapple with what exactly does this product owner role mean, especially if we have a product manager. Now, without going again to a lengthy discussion about it, people started to argue, particularly Scrum proponents, that the product owner and the product manager was similar or interchangeable. And the arguments that were given at the time is that they're both product people and they're both trying to maximize value. Now, these premises were rejected by product managers, but they were endorsed by Agile and Scrum proponents. So the original idea was that the product manager is replaced by the product owner, and then the product manager is also the product owner. Later on in the years, they said that the product manager and product owner were separate. But initially, the idea was that the product owner and product manager are interchangeable, they overlap, the responsibilities of both of them are relatively the same. Or if the PO is similar to the product management, then the PO responsibilities are also associated with the product manager. Now, the product manager, at least that was the thinking at the time, mainly deals with the development team, and they mainly deal with product features and technology. And this brings us to the technology approach to product management. And again, we're going back to 2001, and we're going to the Silicon Valley. And the idea of a CEO of the product, which was used during the dot-com period, wasn't working so good. So companies said to themselves, particularly on the West Coast in the Silicon Valley area, we're going with Scrum. We're going to adopt Scrum. And Scrum is telling us that product managers are like a product owner. And therefore, the focus of a product manager should also be on development and technology. So that reshaped in 2001 the role of the product manager to focus more on development, features, and technology. The technology approach views the product manager as an extension, as a part of product development, and subservient to the software development method. And the technology approach considers everything in product management as something that has to do from a technological or development viewpoint. So any product related issue, roles, responsibilities, processes, teams, tasks, everything is considered from a technological mindset. So what happened was that the majority of the software development companies adopted Agile Scrum, and it was considered for them it was legitimate that the product manager would also assume the responsibilities of a Scrum product owner. And because of that, the technology approach expected most of the product managers, or all of them, to be technically astute, technically knowledgeable. And indeed, eventually, many of the product managers became former engineers or had some kind of an engineering background. And they would perform a variety of activities that supported product development and sometimes even sales. And the main job focus over here was to determine product functionality and product features and communicate these features to the development team. So a deep understanding of development processes, development cycles, the development approach, technology, product knowledge, that was highly valued. And market research and other strategic stuff was valued, but it received a lower priority. So if we are looking for a descriptive title for a product manager under the technology approach, then you're essentially a features manager. You're doing other things, but primarily the core is to manage product features. And product managers under the technology approach have endless status meeting with product development. Unlike in the generalization approach, where you're talking to everybody in the company, here you're mostly talking with the engineers in product development. So now we've got a bit of an issue over here, a bit of a problem, because if the product development team is reshaping and shaping the role of a product management according to the software development method being used, then, for example, if they're using Scrum, you're going to write user stories. And if they decide to move to SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework, then you'll be what? A release train engineer. And if they decide to go back to Waterfall, then you write requirements and MRD and a PRD. And also, what exactly is kind of the relationship if you have another function, another corporate department dictating how your role would look like? It becomes what's called a master-slave relationship, which is a relationship between systems or entities in which one system controls the other. So essentially, you are part of the development team, you're not part, your identity shifts all the time. There's a bit of a problem over here. Well, in any case, our research shows that 70% or more of software development companies worldwide, and also in the USA, of course, employ the technology approach to product management. So this is a very significant segment of the software development world. That is, if you're going to work as a product manager in a software development company, very likely you will assume the technology approach. So now we're moving to another approach, and this approach is called the business approach. And we're going again back to 2001, but instead of going to the West Coast, we're going to the United States East Coast, primarily to Boston and New York. And these are financial centers. And they're looking again at the product manager, CEO of the product, and they're saying to themselves, we're mostly about money. Technology is something that, those guys on the West Coast and Silicon Valley, they're going to handle all of that. We're financial centers on the East Coast, New York and Boston. We're going to focus on the business aspects of the product. So the business approach to product management sees the product manager as being focused on running the business of the product, whatever that means, and I'll explain in a second, and focus primarily on all the monetary issues associated with the product project. So this approach resembles a rather scaled down executive. You talk to a lot of people, you make decisions, decision making, but you engage a lot in revenue management, metrics, costing, pricing, and people who work under the business approach are often associated with phrases like owning the strategy, driving execution, profit and loss accountability. These are kind of phrases that are associated with this approach. So if we are to look at the product manager under the business approach, you're essentially a business manager. You're managing primarily the product financials. Now, this gentleman over here, Stephen Haynes, wrote a book called The Product Manager's Desk Reference, and this book reflects very strongly the business approach where the product manager is managing the business of the product. So you can take a look at if it's relevant to you. So we have the product manager focused on the business aspects, primarily money, and this is all about pricing and costing and revenue and profit, but also about stock price. And that is why the business approach is fixated on any type of new innovation or new emerging technology, if it could be associated or linked or somehow embedded or connected to our product, which will drive the stock price up and maybe, hopefully, gain us more revenue. So they're constantly talking about big data and machine learning and artificial intelligence and automation, analytics, virtual reality, robotics, intelligent, anything that you could connect, which would somehow influence the product's stock price and revenue. I do not have any reliable data to share with you on the business approach to product management. However, I'm going to share with you my experience and some knowledge and anecdotal references that I have. So the business approach in the United States is more common on the East Coast of the United States than on the West Coast. I've seen this approach practiced in Europe, primarily in Germany and in England. And I've also seen this worldwide in technology companies that sell something like a commodity, which would be like internet connectivity or cellular services where there isn't a lot of features to add to it. It's just a connection. So the product managers at, let's say, cellular companies all the time talk about money and how to extract more money from the users and things like that. So now we're coming to the fourth approach to product management, and this is called the methodology approach. And again, we're going back to the 2001 period. And at that time, there were some people, me included, that were saying, we can't just make stuff up. It's not a matter of opinion or conjecture or feel like it. Maybe there's something like the laws of the universe. Maybe product management should be described and defined and governed by some kind of logic, by some kind of principles. So, what are the principles and the foundation of product management? Now, this was kind of thinking among several people, me included, and this gentleman over here, Randy Pausch, I think he represents the thinking that was prevalent in the early 2000s. He had he delivered a well-known presentation, and in that presentation, he said, fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. You got to get the fundamentals down. Otherwise, all the other stuff is just meaningless. It's just your opinion and conjecture. Just confess ignorance if you don't know what is the core of something. So, just like with Newton's law of motion, I and some other people, we started to look for the foundation, the core, the principles of product management. And this is PMTK first edition and the second edition of the book. And the whole idea over here with the methodology approach is that everything is governed by foundation rules. I'll come to that in a second. Now, if we're looking for a descriptive title under the methodology approach, you're essentially a discovery manager. You're managing the market problem which the product solves. So you're constantly engaged with market research and strategic thinking and other things that have to do with something that we're going to call the problem space, while the developers are engaged in the solution space. And you don't cross over and they don't come out from the solution space into the problem space. So the methodology approach views product management as being governed by foundation rule. PMTK is an example of such. And with this approach, the foundation rules regulate and govern everything. Terminology, definitions, roles, tasks, responsibilities, teams, models, processes, interfaces to other departments, everything is governed by the foundation rules. So the outcome, the result that you get is a very strategic, systematic, well-disciplined way of doing product management. However, the methodology approach is more rigid, it's more laborious, it's more document heavy, it's a little bit more complex to understand and to implement. And that is why the methodology approach and PMTK is primarily identified with companies, with organizations that are very efficient, very disciplined, and apolitical, less politics in there. So our research shows that only around 1 or 2 out of 10 software development companies use the methodology approach. So let's round it down. 1 out of 10 companies use PMTK as opposed to 7 out of 10 who use the technology approach. And it's rather similar with the non-software companies. Only 1 out of 10 software companies, non-software product companies, use the methodology approach. The rest use the generalization approach and all kinds of variations over there. So let's do a quick recap, and these are slides for documentation purposes. Let's see the 4 distinct school of thought and approaches that have emerged in product management. So we have the generalization approach, which is focused on project management on delivery, technology, which is focused on the product features, the business, which is the financials, and the methodology approach is focused on understanding the market, the users, the customers, the needs, and so forth. And if you wish, there's some keywords here associated to better help people frame and understand the different approaches. So I'll just go over it quickly. Generalization is about delivery, leadership, ownership, project management, technologies, features, requirements, user story, wireframes, and coding. business, PL, revenue, price, sales, trends, new technology, and methodologies, systematic, problem space, market problem, and so forth. So, having reviewed that, what is the current state of product management now and approaching 2026? So, first of all, I've authored an article by this name, and you can find it on Medium and on LinkedIn if you want to read more insights and more in-depth analysis of what's happening. But the situation is that all these four approaches are being applied and used currently by companies. So what we have is an increasingly chaotic domain. We have a mess on our hands because you have all these four different approaches. And not only that, some companies combine several approaches. Primarily, what they do is they take the generalization approach. You'll be the owner or the CEO of the product, and they combine that with the technology approach. And you'll also work with the developers and do the sprints and whatever. And kind of euphemistically, they call it a full stack product manager. So we have these four different approaches which are currently being applied at different companies. And we also have these permutations and combinations of several, one, two or more of these approaches being combined. So we're at the summary of this presentation, and if you want to read more about PMTK or the other books that you saw in the blurb on the website, then please feel free to take a look at them. Please feel free to contact me directly if you wish through LinkedIn or through the Blackblot website. I'd like to thank you all for listening in today to this presentation. I hope you've gained some new insights and new ideas with regard to the product management practice and domain. And I'd like to also thank Mr. Gene Gendel for inviting me over to deliver this
Thank
presentation.
you.
So until we meet again, it's thank you and goodbye. And if you
Good.
wish, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh yeah, Gabriel. I was gonna say, are you gonna pop off the channel? No, you're staying,
No,
right?
no, I'm not. I'm not
So
going
folks,
anywhere.
Gabriel is very humble and he actually gave you back almost 23 minutes. So utilize it to the best of your abilities. So, pretty generous.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm going to stop the sharing so I can see everybody. And I'm happy to answer if anybody has any questions or whatever. I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. So folks, the floor is open. You can just raise your hand or just yell out.
Everybody knows everything and everything is understood.
Any,
Question for the generalization of the general product. It says project management. So do they take the role of the project manager and there's no project manager on the team?
In many cases, yes. They also assume project management responsibilities. Sometimes you will have a situation where there is a program manager, and that program manager manages the product project. But the program manager is somebody that is more is multi it's a multidisciplinary role that offloads the responsibilities of managing the product project from anybody else. So that is the person who is making sure that the company works together and they work in a synchronized way to bring the product into the market. But if there is no program manager, then the program management or project management, I don't want to go into the intricacies of the difference between, but they're both kind of project manager, is falls onto the product manager. And in many situations, they will also do product marketing as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Hey, Gabriel, there are two questions. You can take them in order from Laurent and from David. Oh, David, good seeing you here. In the chat window, if you want, I can read them to you, or you can just look them up.
Yeah, please read it to me, please.
So there's one. So I guess I'm understanding correctly. In today's Scrum, product manager corpus still probably better if you read it falls in the technology. So maybe Laurent, maybe you want to just say it and give some caveat, give some verbs to it, if you're still on the call with us.
I didn't understand the question. If you could
I
clarify,
didn't quite
please.
understand the question myself. So why don't we go to David's and if Laurent wants to um, vocalize the question, he will. David's, how do you see the future of product management in the context of AI, role, impact, replacement? Your view.
So AI is just a tool, and I see the analogy of an AI to just something that is going to be very useful in taking away certain tasks for us. But I think that product management, according at least to the methodology approach, is primarily focused on strategic issues and communicating with executives and peers and with customers and with users. And AI cannot do that. Now, another thing is that AI feeds off information that somebody has authored and entered onto the internet. So essentially, it's compiling information from a different source. And I'm not sure exactly which tasks can an AI chatbot or an AI system do. So, for example, a lot of people are saying now that AI is going to write the PRDs instead of product managers. But until now, and I've asked this for at least 2 months, I have not seen or heard of anybody saying that they have used a chatbot to create a PRD, and that PRD has been used in production. So I haven't seen anything. I see a lot of chatter. I see a lot of talk. I see a lot of executives firing people and laying off people and saying that AI is going to replace engineers and it's going to replace the product managers. But I haven't seen any example of an actual AI system actually replacing and doing the work of a product manager. So for me, AI is just a tool. It's helping me do a lot of things, particularly in language and calculations. It's helping me with minimal coding, entry-level coding. But I haven't seen anybody, let's say, create even a mobile application entirely with AI. Now, I could be missing things, but I haven't seen this yet.
Sharing one interesting link in chat about who owns AI code. Another recent talk
Okay.
with people. Hey, there was another question. I can articulate what Javier was asking. What are the main frameworks that a PM should use? Design thinking, agile, and from the same person up above. I'm sorry, that's a different person. So actually, the chat window went through too fast. So let's go with
Okay.
Javier's question.
So this term framework is being used very sparingly by a lot of people, and they're mixing method with a model, with a framework and a methodology. It's all getting mixed up. In the context of product management, a lot of people, particularly in the technology approach, when they talk about frameworks, they're talking about scoring and prioritization methods like Fibonacci and ICE and RICE and all these kind of things. So I'm not going to go there. We've developed an algorithmic approach to product prioritization because all those different frameworks of prioritization are, in our opinion, very subjective and they're very subject to manipulation. That's one thing. The second thing I heard over there is agile or something like that. In at least PMTK in the methodology approach, there's a clear separation between the problem space and the solution space, between product management and product development. Agile, whatever it is, and there's all kinds of definitions out there, is something that I would contend is primarily based on lightweight software development principles. There's heavyweight software development like waterfall and spiral and stage gate. And there's lightweight, which is Scrum and XP, and I think it was TDD and Crystal Clear, something like that. There was the kind of approaches during that time. So anything that has to do with the solution space, anything that has to do with product development, according to PMTK and the methodology approach, is not in the realm of product management. It is something that belongs to developers. Now, for reasons that have to do with budget and politics and uh, maybe different perspectives or whatever you want to call it, product managers were dragged or taken from the solution space, from the strategic realm, and drawn into the solution space, into the heart of the development world, and employed, at least with Scrum, as a Scrum product owner, managing the development effort for the developers. A better idea, which is only in the last couple of years, is that you have a product owner and a product manager, and the product owner is over there in the solution space with the developers, and the product manager communicates market information, strategic information, user needs, etc. And that is translated into any method or any approach that the development team is using. So, for example, if they want to use Scrum, go ahead. If you want to use Waterfall, go ahead, do that. My job in product management is not altered or changed because the development team is undergoing changes or is changing itself.
Thank you for that. Gabriel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here all the time.
Looks like the questions started falling in, and they're hands left, right, and center. So I don't know what the right thing to do. Let's go in the order of. Let's take one more from the queue, and then see if we can take some hands. Tiffany and David. There was one that I think it came in order. Oh wait, there are too many. Folks, how about we do this? Since too many comments and questions, if you want to speak up, just raise your hand. So we're gonna go from left to right, based on the yellow. And so, Tiffany, you're first.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate this information. It's been very informative to understand just the distinctions between how product management has evolved. And I'm just curious as far as the perspective around, having a product owner, as you expressed, and then also having a product manager. But then because there's a lot of different flavors out there as far as companies sort of bucketing product managers, focusing on doing all kinds of things, um, if that if that actually can be kind of challenging for a product manager role where there's now expectations where you might be expected to kind of run as a product owner in the technology space and in addition be sort of a product manager from a strategy perspective too, where you're kind of handling everything. So I'm just kind of curious as far as like now that there's kind of mixing and matching, if you've noticed, or companies might just kind of bucket people under a quote unquote product manager, but kind of expecting that there's all these different responsibilities to manage versus having it a little bit more distinct where, one talent can be kind of expressed more focused.
Well, I hope I understood the question. I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. Um, the rise of the I'm sorry, the rise of the technology approach started around 2006 and it reached a kind of mainstream in 2010. And from 2010 and beyond until 2018, the product manager was also considered to be a product owner under the technology approach at software development companies. And from surveys that we did and from all kinds of conversations that we had a consistent answer from people who were both a PO and a PM. They had these two hats together. And they said that 50 to 70% of their time was spent on Scrum activities, where it was the backlog, or it was writing user stories, or it was managing the sprints, or having stand-up meetings, or anything. So essentially what happened was that the competencies and the ability to execute product management were both diminished at these companies. And effectively, these companies really didn't have product management per se. They really had somebody doing product ownership, but with a hat or a title of a product manager. In 2018, companies, particularly on the West Coast of the United States, they started to see the problem that essentially competencies or execution of product management, strategic, whatever you want to call it, is not being done. We have an individual who's primarily working with product development. And then they started to say, well, the product manager should start to write PRDs. They forgot about MRDs. They should write PRDs and let somebody else write the user stories. And then began a shift where you had a separation between product management and product ownership. And product managers were supposed to write now PRDs instead of user stories. But that is not working as well because you cannot write a PRD without having an MRD, a market requirements document, to precede it. So the situation is a mess. Now, at some companies, again, because of politics, budgetary constraints, some perception or whatever, they're actually going back and they're saying, we're going to take one individual and they're going to do everything. And there's going to be the CEO of the product and the technology approach. And we have one figurehead and their PA, they're going to be profit and loss responsible. And it's cheap like this, and you avoid conflict. You don't have people contending with each other and arguing with each other. And I don't think this is going to be successful, but they're doing it now.
Thank you so much. That was very informative. I really appreciate your highlighting that, and just even in my own experience in my product career. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Tiffany. Let's move on to David. Good to see you, man.
I appreciate it. Good to see you too, Gene. And I'll apologize in advance if you hear construction noise. I've been off camera and off microphone because there's warranty work going on in the background. So this was very useful, Gabriel. I appreciate the flyover. Your timeline was very interesting to me because around the period of 2001, I was a technology executive in startups on the West Coast in Silicon Valley and had a very different experience from what you described. In those companies, we had a distinct differentiation between product manager and product owner, and recognized that those are two very separate different roles with different desired outcomes, and treated them as such. And I'd be happy to fill that in if you have time. But the AI question, you sounded a little bit dismissive of AI, treating it as just a tool. And I was reminded of executives that I talked to 25 years ago that said the internet is just a tool. And they saw it as a replacement for internal networks and mixed networks and that sort of thing. And the significance of it was not well understood. I've already developed one standalone application using only AI tools. So it could be a counterexample for what you threw out. And in the companies, in the one company that I'm currently working with, their product management people are using AI not to replace themselves, but to become far more productive. Things that used to take them hours and hours to do to construct a market profile, for example, can be generated 95% done in a matter of minutes with proper tools and prompting.
I'm reading all my information at the moment on AI is coming from LinkedIn. And there's people writing that the vibe coding and having AI write the applications for you is generating code that is flawed. And then you need an expert programmer, engineer, developer, whatever you want to call it, to come in and debug it. And that takes more time than if you would take an experienced developer who's knowledgeable with 20 years experience and just run them through. Now, you could say that from my perspective, AI is changing how we work in product management. It is not changing the fundamentals of product management. From my perspective, this is something like from books to a search engine, from a typewriter to a word processor. And from my perspective, AI is like a very clever consultant or somebody who is an advisor who's sitting next to me, and he has his own frame of mind, and his own background and experience, but he's unable to think forward. They're unable to innovate. They're unable to strategically do things. And I'll add just one more thing. I don't want to monopolize the time, because if you want, send me an email and I'll have a conversation with you later on. The AI at the moment is suffering from what's called hallucinations, in which it goes down the line and it makes stuff up. I've done this and it's hilarious. The problem is that if you leverage that in the business setting with somebody less knowledgeable, let's say at the manager level, not somebody, a director or VP or a CEO, then they would use it, and that could have very bad, catastrophic even effects. Okay?
Yeah, fair enough. And I'll take you up on your offer.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for that, David. We have maybe one more question to take. Tejas, I think you're raising your hand. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much for this informative session, Gabriel. So I'm a graduate student currently, and I'm looking to pivot into this product domain. What do you think are the must-have skills for someone that is looking to get into this market with this kind of a role at this situation?
So what you're saying is that you're looking for a product management position, or you will be looking, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so here I'm going to qualify this very quickly. If you're going with the generalization approach, you'll find a lot of jobs also outside of software companies, but there you would probably need an MBA, and your chances of getting a promotion are fair. The salaries are going to be also okay. I'm going on a venture here. I'm going to give my opinion. Always in error, never in doubt, but I'm going to give my opinion. So, with regard to the technology approach, the salaries are very high, and there are work. There's jobs. There's work. There's a lot of competition as well, and this competition is not coming from, I don't know, 20 miles around the corporate office. It's coming from around the world. So, if you land a job, then the salary is going to be very good. It will be rewarding, but your chances at those particular companies, and I can go into an explanation why, of getting a promotion are lesser than with the other approaches. So you'll become an expert, or you'll become a senior, or they give you more money, but the chances of rising up in the career ladder at those specific companies is lower. Now, of course, there's outliers. Now, if we go to the methodology approach, in my opinion, and I'm biased, that is the best approach if you're looking to go up the ladder towards, let's say, an executive level position. And I can explain that, by the way, and provide the rationale. So it's not just an opinion. With regard to the business approach, this is kind of a dead-end job, but it's very stable. It's very steady. So if you're looking for job security, you'll find it there. And the salaries are okay, but they're not the best. Usually, people rise in within those companies to become a product manager under the business approach. So this is the layout, as I see it, of the job market at the moment. And you'd have to decide what is the approach that you would like to take, given the pros and cons of each approach. Now, if you want me to provide you later on with data and with the arguments how I came to these conclusions, I can do that. But I'm not just voicing an opinion. I think I have substantive, I'm able to substantiate this.
Thank you so much. I'd love to have that conversation if possible sometime.
Thank you.
Email me if you email
yes.
me. Email me, and I will put you in my calendar. Won't be a problem.
Yes. So, folks, thank you. Before we start dropping, and before I forget to say this, Gabriel is very accessible, very reachable on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, if you would like to pick his brain, or maybe ask some questions about his books, ask him directly on LinkedIn. He is fully transparent. He's easily Googleable. At this point, I just want to kind of wrap it up, so we ended on the hour as we planned. I want to thank you all for joining. It's really enlightening. Thank you, Gabriel, for coming out and giving this great talk. I hope the video, the recording that I'm doing is going to come out well. So I'll probably have it available in the next couple of days. In any case, please stay well, stay dry in rain, and stay well hydrated in the sun. And once again, thank you for making this on Friday afternoon. For some of you, for most of you, it's afternoon already. Once again, Gabriel, special thanks to you. Okay, everyone,
Thank you.
have a great weekend. Have a good Friday.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Jared.
Bye-bye.
Bye.